Happy New Year! If you're listening to this, you are part of the Resistance. Welcome back to Star Wars Newsnet's The Resistance broadcast. I'm your host, John Hoey. We're back from our break. We hope you all enjoyed your holidays and saw The Last Jedi a bunch of times like we all did. If you're a new listener, thanks for coming aboard. Please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube, and tell your family and friends because we have a big year coming up on the podcast. To kick the year off, we have a great show for you today, so let's get into it by saying welcome back to James Baney. What's up, James?
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be back. I have had such a missing piece of my soul by not being able to podcast and talk about some of the things I talk with my friends at work, but I can't get it out. I've been reading the visual dictionary, I've been looking at the art of The Last Jedi, and I want to just talk. Let's do it. Let's go.
All right. And our Grand Inquiz editor, who is still in line for Solo a Star Wars Story as we speak, as though you won't be able to buy movie tickets online. Welcome back, Patric Covey.
Where the hell are all you guys at? It's empty in this place. Great to be back on the show. Can't wait to talk Star Wars with you guys. Much like James, I've been definitely itching to get some wars out there on the internet for you guys. Let's talk Star Wars.
I have a feeling that line's going to be filling up soon because we are almost 4 months away from that movie itself. Now, this next guy can be found writing articles at all times of the day, sometimes nocturnally, on our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com, and also over at Heroic Hollywood. It's our buddy Grant Davis. What's up, Grant?
I'm doing A-okay. I am back from space after learning that Colin Trevorrow is not going to be filming the next one, so I'm not freezing. Yeah, it's been a really nice break. I'd say I got to see I saw Last Jedi 3 times over the opening weekend and one more time since then, and I'd like to see it at least once more, preferably with my family. So, you know, life has been good.
Nice. And you used the Force to get back from space, right?
Yeah, I did the thing with
Very controversial topic.
Yes.
Very controversial.
I raised my hand out and I reached for I actually landed in Pyongyang. Very odd people. Very odd people in that particular country.
Good.
At least you got back to the planet, so as long as you got somewhere. So, welcome back. So what we're going to do here is we're going to hop into those poll results, and we asked you guys, keeping in mind that everything out there is complete rumors, when do you think we'll get a Solo trailer? And 14% of you said next week. 18% of you said this week, which that's not looking too good. 29% of you said sometime in February, and the winning vote, 39% of you said before January is over. So we're about halfway through there. But I think we're all kind of feeling that it's coming close. So either way you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's right around the corner. And we'll see whether it's a teaser or a trailer or not. But the best comment, which I thought was funny, because most people were general, like those types of answers. This guy, Paul Lennon at Len LFC, just goes January 23rd.
That's the day.
With a smirk, and he gave a smirk emoji. So if it comes out January 23rd, I'm following this guy. I'm DMing this guy. He may work for Lucasfilm. I'm not sure.
You don't already follow? This is Mark Hamill's second Twitter account. This is the one that he tweets stuff.
Oh, well, he is a Beatles fan, so Paul Lennon, that could be something there. I mean,
does that mean he's the
a conspiracy having to do with Mark Hamill? No one's ever heard of that, but maybe we'll get into some more of those a little later. But before we get into Newsnet with James, even though he's itching so much to get back into things here,
come on,
we haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about The Last Jedi since our last episode, which we recorded the official opening day of the movie. So we've all had a lot of different things change for us. Like, for example, for me, when I first saw it, I liked Rose a lot. I didn't like Holdo. And now that completely flipped. I'm actually kind of soured on Rose. Don't throw things at me, folks. It's just, she was a little off to me, a little cheesy. Even her theme is a little cheesy to me, a little Harry Potter-y or something. I'm not sure. But Holdo, after a few viewings, and now every time I see her blast through the Raditz at hyperspace, it just sells it for me. Now, what do you guys think in terms of things that may have changed for you guys since the first time you saw it, Pat?
Well, for me personally, the things that have changed the most, I would say, are the dynamics between certain characters. Maybe opening night you get that angsty feeling of like you don't know what to expect. You're just you're there listening, but you're not fully processing it. What's going on? Especially the stuff between Poe and Holdo. It definitely starts to open up a little bit more, because I know that was one of the more controversial sections of the film where people felt like Holdo wasn't saying a whole lot. Well, in the grand scheme, when you think about it and start to process it, of course she wouldn't say that stuff. She's above him in rank. she has no reason to tell him stuff unless she absolutely has to. And in this case, she's withholding that because she feels like he's a hothead. He might get ahead of the game and do something risky where he could risk maybe even more lives. It makes more sense. It just works, as crazy as that sounds. And of course, the stuff towards the end of the movie really started to resonate with me more when you see the dynamic, especially the stuff during that initial attack, where you get to see these individual characters we know and love, and individual ski speeders, all playing a part in this big battle, and how everything's constantly shifting, the risks are high. I love this film. After 2 viewings, I hope to see it one more time while it's still in theaters, if I possibly can. Second time, I did get to see it in 3D. I highly recommend, if you guys have not seen this film in 3D, go check it out. Of course, it does shade the color a little bit, but I highly recommend it.
Right on, man. It seems like we've all kind of found something, whether it be effects or characters, that have kind of changed for us in the multiple viewings. Grant, how about you?
It's funny that we were making that joke earlier about the whole Leia thing. The more I watch it, the less it bothers me. And I don't know if that's necessarily... Like, I mean, I think that there have been some people who have compared it to, like, the George of the Jungle scene in Indiana Jones 4 with the Shia LaBeouf doing the monkeys or whatever.
Right.
And for me,
I don't think anyone likes that.
Right. And for me, I think it's a case of I would have executed it differently, but it feels like there's a kind of grace to it. It's something that you wouldn't expect from a Star Wars movie, and that's why I think it's set a lot of people off, I guess. But one thing that I really like is if you watch it, you see her go through the projection of the supremacy, just like just like how Holdo goes through it. Like it's like one of the many bits of foreshadowing that are included throughout the movie that I really like that they're in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of little nuggets in this movie that I feel like even 20 years down the line, I'll probably see something. James, how about you? What's changed?
So the first time I went into the movie, there were obviously things that caught me unexpectedly, and I thought, like, I don't know how I feel about that quite yet, right? And then other things that just I kind of went over, like, I just kind of passed over, okay, that's a thing that happened, right? So I kind of felt like, I was kind of here on one side and here on the other. And then I went in the second time, and I started to realize that this is where everything starts to kind of level out and move in the opposite direction. So the things that I was kind of unsure of the first time, I started to become a little bit more comfortable with. But then the things that I kind of glossed over, I started to note, I was like, oh, maybe that doesn't really make sense, right? The longer I've gone and the more times I've seen it, it's gotten better, because I really think that the director and the people involved coming out and kind of explaining some of those things they couldn't say right when it was first out, have really helped to develop things, and fans and discussions have come out. And I know people are like really against this. There's a small group of people out there who are against the movie or are not really fans of it. And even Grant, you mentioned like it doesn't really feel like Star Wars. That whole mindset just completely blows my mind. Like, I don't get that at all. Like, the Leia thing, I mean, we've seen that in Rebels. We've seen that in Clone Wars. So we haven't seen it in a movie. So maybe those people don't really realize that Star Wars does that stuff. But it does for me. Like, this movie just keeps getting better. And I think, and I don't want to rattle on too long, but I think there are like 3 main things that really drive me crazy. And it's the Canto Bight stuff. I've really come around on that. I think it's so important for Finn's character, because he started the movie wanting to bail on the Resistance, and he learns how to be a part of a crew by the time he has dealt with the 2 sides of the argument. Rose, stick with one faction, and DJ saying, don't do that. All of these characters, Rose and DJ, all have a point, because they're also helping to develop Finn. And Finn's whole storyline of going there helps develop him as a character, because when Phasma says, you're scum, he says, I'm rebel scum. That's the end of it. That's when he's decided that he's going to be this and he's going to stay with the Resistance. I think that the failure in the whole movie is something that most people don't like, right? They say, oh, nothing really happened. Everybody failed. this was the point of the movie. Like, Empire Strikes Back was a whole lot of failure. There was a lot of stupid things that characters did that ultimately led to bad, I don't know, just like bad situations that they're in. And that movie didn't really end on a positive note. And this movie, luckily, did end on a positive note with Luke coming back. They say they ruined his character. He became a legend. He lived up to the myth that Rey talks about in the first movie. I thought he was a myth. Now he is. Well, not in the myth in the sense that he doesn't exist, but he's a legend forever. Sure. And that whole, I wish we were doing a whole podcast on this again, because I seriously could go for so long. I get so worked up when people say that that's not my Luke, or that is they ruined his character or something, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He became this huge legend. He saved the Resistance. He went out there and he did it doing something no one's ever done before. He did it in a clever and passive way, and it's just, everything about it is so perfect. Like, I just can't understand somebody wanting him to go out there and fight Kylo Ren and lose and then die, or possibly kill him. I don't know. It just, none of that makes any sense. And I'm like, Ryan, dude, you did it. Like, in my opinion, I just really, really, really love a lot of the stuff that he did with this movie.
Yeah,
it's going down as one of my favorites. I'm saying it now.
I think it's a lot of it has to do with, you need this movie to feel like home, where we're so used to, like, someone who's against the movie, for example, has had Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and New Hope, say, for example, if they're a purist to the original trilogy, in their brain since they've been kids. So that was normal. So anything that goes outside of that jars them. And I get that from an instinctive manner, but it's something that over time, I think this movie will be accepted and be like, okay, this is Star Wars now. So maybe that's where we're going. But on that note, we do have a lot to get into in terms of what does enrich this movie. So without further ado, James, it's Newsnet time. What do we got?
Well, the Star Wars YouTube channel, best known for their weekly news show, put on a video featuring Andy Gutierrez sitting down with 4 members of the Lucasfilm Story Group as they discuss the hidden Easter eggs and references and all that stuff that are spread all throughout The Last Jedi. In attendance was Matt Martin, Pablo Hidalgo, Leland Chee, and Rain Roberts. The most surprising claim from this video was actually hearing that they still don't have a name for the adorable Porg next to Chewbacca on the Falcon, despite the fact that we are here at the Resistance broadcast and we have named him Gary long before this movie ever came out. So, as we all know, his name is Gary. John, what did you think of this video, particularly that Gary situation?
Well, I started getting a little excited, like, in my optimism, when I started hearing them talk about, when Andy said, oh, does this thing have a name? And I thought Pablo was going to reveal, like, because he knows Ash Crossan, and Ash Crossan's on board with the Gary thing. I'm like, what if he says we're going to name this thing Gary? I would have lost my mind, man, but he didn't, of course. He left it open. But he did say it's a male based on its coloring, and it's yet to be named. So the movement is still happening. We tweeted it out today to them from our account, and Matt Martin liked it. So,
so moving up in the world, guys.
Well, baby steps. A little Twitter like is worth a couple stocks in terms of naming stuff, maybe. But I mean, I was excited at the possibility of it, but nothing really came from it. But this video, just let's get into this thing, because it was just so cool, and I did the report on Star Wars Newsnet from it, and just kind of took my favorite parts out and talked about it, like the dice, the light speed tracking. But there is one part I really need to talk about, and it involves The Godfather. So I'll get to that a little later, but I'll let you guys dive into some stuff here.
I actually have not seen it. I was actually going to watch it, plus some of the episodes of Star Wars shows that I haven't watched yet. I was going to do that tonight.
Did you see the Rogue One
I didn't know that
video
they
did last year, where they did this?
I mean, I did a huge article that basically, I did 2 articles that covered all the cameos and a bunch of the blink and you'll miss it type stuff, but I didn't know that they did one
Yeah, so these are kind of cool because not only do they show you the stuff that the fans picked out, but they also have a lot of these little like, hey, this is new information. Like, we've yet to see fans pick up on this, so we're going to go ahead and reveal that now. We thought maybe somebody would get it. Or maybe they're just like inside jokes that, new stories about like, why DJ was named what he was named. Like, we wouldn't know that, but they're kind of revealing that in the video. Pat, then you have seen the video then?
Yes, I have.
There was one thing I did want to talk about that I thought was interesting. I actually did not realize that for the Leia recording that they used CG for that. From the looks of things, they used CG because I was looking at the original clip in comparison, and these are not shot at the same angles. So.
No, they actually talk about that in the video. Those are from the original dailies, so that was actual footage from 1976.
It was just different footage than the takes that we usually use.
Yeah, so they found the original dailies and purposely did that so they could show a different vantage point of it.
That was a cheap move, indeed.
Yeah, so if you get a chance, check that out. Pat, you've seen the video though, right?
Yeah, I have seen this video, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially a lot of the silly little things here or there. I do feel kind of bad that Warwick Davis didn't get as much screen time as he possibly could have had in this. They had him as, like, two different creatures, which almost goes back akin to back in the Phantom Menace days where he had, like, 2 or 3 different roles within one film.
4, I think. Technically.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 originally in Last Jedi, I think, going into this. And after cuts and deleted scenes, it went back down to he only had 1 on-screen role. But I was glad to see that he definitely got to be on with his daughter in one of the scenes again in Last Jedi in the Canto Bight sequence. That was really nice that they could involve a family member with him as well.
Yeah, I am in the middle of reading the Canto Bight book, and one of the characters that the characters that he did play in the movie is from the Canto Bight book, and then also at least one of the other ones is also from that book. And I do gotta recommend that book, man. I said that long ago that I was like excited about it. I think not all the stories have been like total hits, but I have been interested, and the way that they fit it in with the movie, because not all of the characters, but a lot of the characters that are in the book can be seen in the background of the movie, which makes you kind of think that all these kind of events happen on the same night or relatively close to each other, which is just really cool. It really opens it up and makes me feel a lot closer to those characters. As far as the video, getting back to what they were doing, I love that they do this. It's so awesome. Like,
yeah, I agree.
The video is very well done. It's fun to watch them talk about it. It's fun to hear them talk about things that we didn't know. Even like the things that we uncovered a long time ago, like, oh, look at that. In Rogue One, they're talking about hyperspace tracking. Well, they bring that up, but it's just nice to hear like Matt and Pablo, like talking about it. And I love the Rogue One one. The Rogue One and this one as well.
It's funny you mentioned the lightspeed tracking thing, because when people who, and I'm talking about detractors again, but people who say that Disney doesn't care about Star Wars and stuff, if anything, this video, they should watch this, because it is evident how much these people care about continuity in these movies and tying things together and making it a real living thing. So a small stupid thing from Rogue One while she's scrolling through pages may be a huge thing in a saga film. That is crazy. That means that we could see something in Solo that might be monumental in Episode 9. So for people to say that they don't care about the preservation of these movies and tying things in the story, they're absolutely crazy. I'm sorry.
And it's funny you should mention Solo in particular, because it sounds like they just said that the dice that they had Luke give Leia, I mean, that was an actual prop in the Millennium Falcon before then, but I think they just said that Solo has something to do with those very dice.
Yeah, so they said that the list of...
Matt Martin gave a wink about that.
They said that the list of things are hints towards possibly even other movies as well to come. And then they also later mentioned that there was supposed to be a scene in The Force Awakens with Han and the dice, which got cut, which was supposed to kind of be a reference to this because they knew they were going to do it or something along those lines. But it's good because Mark Hamill still shows in the movie, takes it off of the Falcon or whatever. But they do say, wink, wink, It's probably going to be something we see in Solo. When he gets the thing, he's going to throw up some dice, and we're going to be like, "Oh, it's the dice from Last Jedi."
Or he wins the Falcon using the dice or something.
Yeah.
But
I would love that
one
were
thing
the case, by the way.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I guess, and also a fun thing Matt Martin said in A New Hope, they were just regular dice with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on it, and they added Arabesh or whatever on it, numbers. But when you think about these dice, when you look at Luke putting him in Leia's hands, even though he's not really there, and holding her hands together, that's the big three. That's the closest we'll ever see them together in this trilogy. That's Han represented with Luke and Leia all together, and they're like wrapping their hands around Han in a sense. So that seemed like really meant a lot to me. I know that's like looking deep into it, but that really is the closest we're going to get to these three being together, unless all of a sudden they really want to kick fans in the teeth and make Han a Force ghost, but we know that's not going to happen.
I might go a little sad with this, but all three of them are there, but yet all three of them have a different way of not being there. Han is not there because he is killed off in the movie. Luke is not there because he is a Force spirit that is not actually there in the physical.
A projection.
And Carrie is not there because she is on screen right now and we're watching her, but she isn't with us in real life anymore. So it's like, it's this crazy thing where like they're all there, but they're all not there at the same time. I do want to give a shout out to someone who recently put up a video on Reddit of all of the new clips from this Star Wars special that they used in the special to describe certain scenes, but we actually haven't seen it out of the theater yet. He put all of those clips together, which is a good like 4 or 5 minutes, and put some awesome like epic music behind it, and it was like amazing to watch. It was like a trailer in itself. So if you guys want to go there, it's probably buried now by the time the episode comes out, but you can find it, and it was a really good job. So
the one other thing I wanted to talk about was the Kylo and Rey aspect of this video, because one of the biggest hot button issues is the whole Reylo thing and the romance thing, and Rey keeping the door open for Kylo. And Pablo Hidalgo, first of all, have you guys all seen The Godfather?
Yes.
The first one, yes.
Sadly, no. I know I'm a terrible person.
Well, I'm going to spoil the whole movie for you.
That's good.
So,
okay.
I mean, it's a 47-year-old movie, so you missed out.
I read the Cliff Notes.
Yeah. So Pablo compares the scene of Rey closing the door of the Falcon on Kylo Ren to the scene where the door closes between Michael Corleone and Kay. And if you haven't seen The Godfather, first of all, go see it if you're crazy to not have seen it. But no offense, Pat. But if you haven't seen the scene, I posted the link to the 2-minute scene in my article on Star Wars News Net about this story. So go check that out and watch the video. But essentially, Michael tells Kay to never ask him about his business, ever. And he gets angry at her, yells at her. And then he calms down. He says, "You can ask me this one time." And she says, "Did you kill him?" And he says, "No, he lied to her." So then she says, "Oh, okay, I'm relieved." And she goes out to the other room. And then he gets surrounded by his, mafia guys. And they deem him the new Don Corleone. And Michael's gone at that point. He's pure evil. He is the Don. He is the Godfather.
The Supreme Leader.
And they're in 2 separate rooms. Yeah, they're in 2 separate rooms, and she's looking, and we're watching her, and one of his guys closes the door between the two. And Pablo Hidalgo references that scene. And what's funny about it is in the screenplay of The Godfather, it says, quote, "Kay is shocked, never taking her look of amazement off of Michael. He feels her look." Just like Kylo felt Rey looking at him. And she just shuts the door, and she's done with him. So, I mean, to me, that is, again, just more proof that that connection is closed now. Rey chose her path to be a Jedi, and he's just going to submerge himself into more darkness, especially if this gap between 8 and 9 takes a few-year jump. I'd love to see him be that Jedi killer with the ashes, and we never really saw Kylo Ren do damage except for when he killed Lor San Tekka. So I need some less emo and more evil Kylo Ren, so hopefully we get that.
One of the things that the story group gave credit for in this video was the sound design and they particularly referenced Rey and Kylo and how they were able to reach out with each other and how that worked exactly. Rian Johnson also actually had a few things to say about how it was possible, but from more of like an in-universe perspective. Patrick, you read the article on this, right? Tell me about how Rian described it.
Basically, the way that Rian described this is that they're having this deeper connection between each other that's it's more emotional than it is what you feel like you're seeing on the screen. And the best way he described it was how the actors actually were there for each other on set. So that way, even though you didn't see them, they were sitting off camera. They were able to perceive each other with a little more depth, whereas in a normal film, you might not have that other person there with you on set. They're just kind of running the risk of like maybe not getting that across to the audience. So with them taking that extra step to be there for each other on set, that emotion really comes across the screen and deepens that connection between these two characters. And I honestly feel like even though Snoke said in the film that he's the reason for all of this, I think what Ryan's trying to prove across is that even though whether or not Snoke actually connected the two of them together, that's up for debate, that maybe there's something more there. They can create that connection on their own and go a little bit deeper, and that's what Ryan was really trying to push with that.
So, Pomo, let me ask you, good idea, bad idea to fly Adam Driver all the way out to where Daisy is just to have him sit off screen?
I think that's actually, it was a clever bit of misdirection on that part for certain. Since at the time we were under the impression that there might have been a major action scene on Ashto, which actually there was an action scene. It just got cut. It's Rey's third lesson about the whole the caretaker party, where she thinks is an attack on the thing. It's a cool deleted scene, but yeah, I think for what it's worth, it made more sense for them to, considering they're all like, oh, practical effects, that it makes sense to actually have Adam Driver there, as opposed to being like, oh, well, you can be we can just digitally edit you into this shot or whatever. And it's like, that's not really the best thing for an actor to do, you know? You have to, you kind of have to be there, is the thing. So, you know.
My favorite part about this is knowing how he felt it was very important to actually put her face to face with the enemy. And I immediately flipped back and thought, what would it be like if Luke kept having these encounters with Vader when he was on Dagobah? You know what I mean? And actually having dialogue with him and maybe finding out that way that he was his son. And I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool dynamic that could have been something really neat in the older movies that they didn't explore. And now we're getting the opportunity to explore. John, what do you think about this whole them talking through the Force situation?
It's one of those things where it could have been received poorly or done poorly, because it's two people talking in two different places, but talking about their surroundings. And I love that we're talking about this right after we talked about that video with the story group, because Pablo Hidalgo mentions that Ryan used simple old school film techniques like eye level and things like that, as opposed to newer techniques like Pat was saying about doing, mapping or whatever. But I love the fact that they pulled it off, because a lot of people who didn't like this movie still said that they loved this part of the movie. And it's very integral to the movie because it leads up to that huge encounter with Snoke in the throne room. If you don't deliver on this scene with them at the back and forth and doing different things, taking chances, Kylo having the water on his hand even though he's still up in space and not on Octu, her being able to see him wondering why, saying, you can't be doing this, the effort would kill you. Which, Pat, by the way, that makes me think that Snoke definitely was involved, because he had to have been able to make her do that. But overall, this scene worked for me, the whole exchange. And the one thing that didn't, though, which people are going to get probably mad at me about, is Luke, when he finds them. I was like, it's cranky dad, coming in and yelling at the kids and saying, what are you doing? I told you to keep the door open when you had a date over. I don't know, something about that I didn't love. But overall, the scene worked for me. And yeah.
Rian Johnson also went on to talk about his views on how he decided to kind of, end the story of Luke Skywalker, including some details on why he chose to have him look the way that he does and use the lightsaber that he was particularly using in this scene. This is actually kind of newer news as of today. Paul, I'm going to shoot it back at you. You knew about this, right? The whole... why is Luke using Anakin's lightsaber? It was exploded earlier. Yeah.
I was going to basically say, the whole thing about that is that the reasoning behind that is that Luke, Luke looking younger than he usually did, for one thing, that just had to do with he was psychologically using that to taunt Kylo Ren, which I think also makes sense if you think about the whole Lor San Tekka, look how old you've become, thing that Kylo says then. Whereas Luke hasn't aged a day, as far as Kylo knows. But the thing about the lightsaber is he didn't necessarily see the lightsaber get destroyed. He just saw a flash of light, fell unconscious for a few minutes, and that was the last he saw of the lightsaber up until then. So him using that, I think, makes sense. I think it also because it's like he's been possessive of that lightsaber, and then the other thing is, I think if he were using the green lightsaber, that has like enough negative memories on Kylo Ren, as it were, that I don't think that would have been like Luke is trying to do like a passive aggressive sort of presentation of himself, not an actually aggressive presentation, which I think the green lightsaber would have done, because that was basically the impetus of him going evil in the first place.
Well, John, that lightsaber, it belongs to me. So how do you like this explanation of didn't Kylo just see it explode? Why would it? I don't know. What do you think of this?
I think that's a good point, that he didn't see it. And I think that's why Ryan made sure we saw Kylo on the ground unconscious and Hux go to grab his gun. It was clear him saying, this guy's out cold.
And he never picks up like the other half. They make sure to show that Rey has both.
Rey has both halves. Yeah, he was snoozing. So he didn't see what happened after that little split happened. Rey, I guess, took it better and had the wherewithal to grab the two pieces. Kind of like how Luke went back and grabbed his lightsaber in Return of the Jedi. He's like, wait, I'm going to save my dad, but let me go get my saber quick and put it back on my belt. But in terms of that technique, I love that. Like, I didn't even think of that at first. I just remember being in the theater at the world premiere, by the way, and saying, what? That's not, well, that's obviously not that lightsaber. You know, I'm just, as a total caveman, I'm not looking at, oh, that's not really Luke there, blah, blah, blah. But now looking back at it, the only thing I wish a little bit if Kylo just said, "Give me that lightsaber," I wish he said something like that to bring that back to a nod to The Force Awakens. But overall, I think I agree with Grant's angle on that. I think Kylo had no idea, and it was Luke just trying to really just dig at him.
Patrick, are you with us in agreeing that Luke using a little bit of Just for Men in order to make a 30-year-old man like just really angry? Is that the best result of the movie?
Honestly, I don't think his age has much to do with it, but I feel like it comes across at such a pivotal moment. It's kind of weird because it makes him look like he did back when he made that switch to Ben Solo, but at the same time, I think we brought this up in the review, is that it was the time where Luke was last truly in tune with the Force. And that was the last point he really was trying to pursue the whole Jedi thing. It's before he felt like he had failed everyone and everything. So not only is this a thing to taunt Kylo, it's also a personal thing for Luke to go back to that. And we have a question later on in the episode we're going to address back with that. But yeah, I feel like the age thing, Just for Men has a certain point where it's trying to come across as I'm old, but I can also be really cool.
Yeah, can I say one more thing about the Kylo Ren thing? I actually just realized one thing that filming sequence, the way that sequence was filmed, what it reminded me of was the Gollum Smeagol conversation in Lord of the Rings.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, but it's like it's shot in a similar way in that it's like you can see it gives off the impression that these two people are talking to each other even though they're not in the same location, which is kind of similar to Smeagol talking to himself, but the angles that they're shooting at makes it look like he's talking to someone who's off screen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was interesting.
Guys, I'm over it. I'm on to the next thing. Solo is coming out in 4.5 months. We have no official images. We have no trailer as of yet. We have nothing really, but there is this one leaked image online that might as well be an official image. Pat,
Wait, James, that's fake. That's a fake image, isn't it?
I mean, some people are saying that was photoshopped. I don't know.
No, wait. That's a real image.
It's on the Lego boxes.
When I saw it, I was immediately like, yep, that's real. But I don't know. Someone told me they reached out to Disney. They said it wasn't real.
It's fake. It's fake. No, it's real. It's real.
Pat, what do you think about this image? If in fact, and we're pretty positive this is a real image, but if in fact this is a real image, this becomes our first like actual look at these characters and what possibly could be kind of the feel or the vibe of this movie. What are you feeling from this image that we saw?
Well, first of all, for those of you who haven't heard the story, the reason this came out was this was originally attached to a calendar for 2018 for people who were involved with the Disney company. It was like all the different Disney properties that were going to be out in the year, and they just wanted to promote all the properties with one on each month. And
it was a Russian calendar, right?
Yeah, it was like
I think
it might have been an international.
Vladimir Putin's bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably.
Gold toilet.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Gold calendar.
So the point
gold
of
toilet.
the point of this was basically
Confirmed.
they were trying to promote all these properties to get Putin to put this in his theaters. Yeah. No. So it was crazy to see that this would pop up in a calendar of all places. But then, of course, Lego being Lego, it showed up on the boxes, and we now know this is officially going to be a part of the box art for all the new merch coming this year. So not only will it be on the Lego stuff, it's going to be on the Hasbro stuff. You're going to see it on all the other stuff that comes out, like the puzzle boxes, the little board game stuff. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be on every piece of merchandising you'll see. I really like this image because not only does it give us our first look at the character of Han Solo, officially we get to see that Chewie has a new bandolier, which was something we were not expecting, and it's raised a lot of eyebrows because in Episode 3 he has the classic bandolier, and it's like, well, why does he have this bandolier now? And it's like, maybe Wookiees have multiple bandoliers, like they have a little tie collection of bandoliers almost.
Gotta change it up sometime.
Maybe the Wookiees gift each other these at Christmas time. Oh, sorry, Life Day.
Life Day. So the image is real. Let's go with the image is real. Pomo,
yes.
Do you like the look of these characters in this film?
I'd say so. I mean, the only thing I personally have issue with is Lando's haircut.
Mm-hmm.
Just the that it's not like a straight it's not like it's not how it usually looks. Like there's like a kind of dent into it. But from the looks of the leaked Lego figures that we've seen, it looks like he has his regular hair in there as well. So I'm probably not going to complain. But I mean, as far as the way Lando looks, I think he looks fantastic. I think Emilia Clarke looks Emilia Clarke-y, I guess. Pretty as ever. I like the bandolier on Chewie, and I'm actually a little more confident in this movie after having seen this image as Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, even though he's not necessarily like... I was personally hoping for Anthony Ingruber or whatever, because he looks like a young Harrison Ford, but...
But he's a bad actor.
Well, I mean, I can see that fair enough, but, whatever. But yeah, I'm just... And I really like the Falcon, too. I like that that the details on the ship itself are significantly different and not just the paint job. Like, there's the actual docking devices in there, and there's a different turret, if you notice, too. Like, it's a single one instead of a quad.
For me personally, I look at this photo, and like I said before, I looked at it and I said, oh yeah, that's real. And then there was this weird question of if it's not or whatever. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't see how anybody fakes that. That's like artwork, and it's like perfect. It looks exactly like Disney would do it. I look at this image, and still today, there is absolutely nothing that I would change. Not any single thing on it. It is perfection to me. That is exactly what I want Han Solo to be. That is young Han Solo to me. That is young Lando Calrissian to me. Like, I love...
Is that young Kira to you?
Yeah, I know. I don't know who that is, but she
young
looks
Chewbacca.
Star Warsy. She looks like someone Han Solo would go after. She doesn't... I don't know. I love the profile. Like, I love the colors. I love the jacket.
I want to get into that.
I love the cape. Yeah. I love his haircut. I love the changes to the Falcon. I can't get enough of this image. I feel like if the movie is even close to this, I feel like, I know it seems so crazy, but I already feel like they landed it. Like, this to me was the image that I needed to see that goes, yep, I'm in. Sold.
One other thing that I was going to point out is the reason I knew this was real from the start is that the outfits actually matched from, like, the little leaks that we've seen so far of, like, the set. They actually matched the same costume. So that's how I knew, in addition to just looking at the composition of it not looking like it was photoshopped, I could tell this was real.
And it's not just...
Unless there were smart fakers out there, like people who did the fake crawl and said, I know that the word decimated's in this, so let me put this in here so people think it's real.
And then we cut to Lars Van Trier.
I mean, we also had the cape too that Ron Howard tweeted out. Not that it's necessarily the same cape, but it's like he made a deal of like he's going to have these styles of capes. So I don't know. You could say that the artist went with that because of the reason the Ron Howard thing. But I don't know. I just saw it all as like perfect. I was like, yep, that's exactly it. John.
Yeah, the image has me really excited for the imagery of the movie, kind of like what you were touching on at the end of your bit there, James. Like based on the tint, like that yellow tint, and hearing that they wanted to make this kind of an old Western vibe, it really makes me lean that way. When I remember watching old Westerns with my dad, they all had a yellowish type of hue to it. So I think that might be like the route we go. Like, you know, certain movies you see, like thematically, like The Last Jedi had the red overtones, and you see like The Dark Knight had like the blue overtones, that kind of stuff. Now, I think this movie's going to have a sort of a yellowish tinge, almost like making it feel like it's an old-timey old Western vibe, and I'm really curious to see when we see the teaser if that's the case. But in terms of what you guys are saying with the outfits, I love it. I love the fact that Chewie's right there behind Han. It eases that pain that we saw from The Force Awakens. It's like we get to see these guys together one more time, even though it's not Harrison Ford. The only thing that's leaving me curious, and I want to save some of this for when we do our Star Wars war later, is it's going to come down to Ehrenreich for me because I'm such a big Harrison Ford fan. Now, I agree that he looks good here. I just want to see if he can pull off the Harrison Ford facial expressions without doing an impression, so to speak. But I want to be able to look at that and just be in the moment and say, that's Han Solo. Kind of like how Ewan McGregor did that to us for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And another thing I really like about this this color scheme, at least in the marketing, I hope it's kind of like this a little bit more towards the movie, is that it's very close to the aftermath cover from the second book. How that was also yellow themed as well, Life Debt.
Good
and that's
call,
very
man.
That's very heavily tied to Han and Chewie and their close relationship, and we get to learn a little bit more about how family is important, even if you aren't direct family, that they consider each other almost like family.
Yeah.
So one last thing there on Solo, there's a lot of leaks that are coming out, and I think we got a lot of these like Lego leaks that you were talking about. So many, in fact, that I don't even want to like begin to start to name them all. For me personally, like just looking at this list, I think the main thing to cover is that we got like more of an official name for Kira being QI''RA, so it was a little bit different version than we thought how it was going to be spelled. And we also got an alien that looks like one that he might be from the Pike Syndicate. That was kind of cool. So people were like, oh, okay, that's like a Clone Wars connection, and some of the comics as well. Like that was really cool.
Yeah, and then there's also there's some other thing that I thought was interesting was they specifically mentioned Corellian hounds, which suggests that we'll finally get to see Corellia, which is Han's home planet. And one other thing that I thought was interesting is that there's a special stormtrooper that's called the Mimban Trooper, which
Mimbin?
Yeah, which if you know your old Star Wars lore, that's actually the location that Splinter of the Mind's Eye takes place, which is actually where I get my username from. So, yeah.
No, I was just going to say Mimbin, I looked this up, so I didn't know this. So I will admit that. I looked this up today, I believe on Wikipedia. Mimbin, which it was Imperial in Legends, and they were going to bring it back as a setting and concept art for Rogue One, which wound up becoming Jeddah. So it ties into that thing again where Lucasfilm keeps things around, and if it doesn't click with something else, they'll try to fire it somewhere else. And the last thing I was going to say is obviously we heard stuff about the Kessel Run, and that Beckett, Woody Harrelson's character, Beckett's first name is Tobias, and the director of the movie happens to be the narrator of Arrested Development. So I don't know if there's any kind of connection there. But I thought that was pretty funny. We'll see if Woody Harrelson blew himself.
And
or
I
not.
think that is that to me is the biggest thing out of the Lego run, is that it says it's the Kessel Run Millennium Falcon. So that kind of confirms, like, these are characters, or these are maybe the way they're going to look, but this is like a story point. This means that this is either going to have just come off of the Kessel Run, or it's right. now built to be ready to go on the Kessel Run, or we're getting the Kessel Run in this movie. I'm very excited about that. Do you guys like the changes to the Falcon? They got the thing on the front, the dish is down. No, I love I think the front kind of makes sense, whatever, if they want to say it's
I was
fast
mad.
Or something, I don't know, but
I was mad that the round satellite dish was gone from Return of the Jedi,
that's actually the
man.
best part. You know why? because that's the dish is gonna be down, and then Han is at some point saying, he is gonna say, I'm thinking about putting it up, and Lando's gonna come back with him and say, like, wouldn't you be afraid of knocking it off? You might get too close to something. You knock that thing off. So I don't know.
He's gonna be like, I can't get a signal on my chessboard. Raise the satellite dish up.
And then the very next time Lando gets in it, he's like, cling, knocks the radar off. He's like, didn't expect it to be up like that. So
that was too close.
A little too close.
And that might tie in perfectly with Return of the Jedi, where he says, "Not a scratch."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, man, I think that's about it for the main news that's out there. John, you're going to be running us down on all the other things that happened during this crazy month of us like deciding not to podcast for some reason, right?
Yeah. Well, we've been gone so long, I almost forgot where I put the keys to the Falcon. But I don't even know if the Falcon has keys, to be honest with you. But who cares, right? Mm-hmm. So punch it. Mark Hamill has been dealing with a storm of false stories about him in regards to The Last Jedi, and the most recent one cooked up claimed Lucasfilm and Disney were so furious with Hamill's comments about disagreeing with Rian's direction that they actually killed off Luke Skywalker in post-production without Hamill knowing, and that he didn't find out until he watched the movie, which is just so... Now, before I continue, seriously imagine for a moment that there are people on this earth right now, Star Wars fans, maybe not even Star Wars fans, who actually believe that could possibly be real. I'm going to go buy stock in tinfoil hats soon, just in case those things start selling, because that is absolutely ridiculous. Now, having to debunk false stories about yourself has to be pretty frustrating, but the Jedi Master appears to be up to the task. He tweeted, quote, "Amazing. Every word in that tweet is wrong. Complete BS. Disney angered? Final scene a surprise to me? Ha 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 ha," which we'll imagine he did in his Joker voice.
Oh, yeah.
What a load of Sith. Lesson learned, folks, don't mess with the Jedi Master. Now, Star Wars Rebels is close to returning for its final 7 episodes to close out the series, likely releasing a single episode per week, with the new episodes possibly airing on Saturdays. It's rumored the show will make its return on February 24th, and the first 2 episodes will be titled Jedi Knight, followed by the following week with the episode called Doom. Grab your tissues, Baney.
No!
The other episodes listed are Allegiance, One Giant Step Ahead, and Call of the Spectre, which will leave the final 2 episodes unnamed at this point, which may likely be a 2-part series ender, closing out just before the release of Solo: A Star Wars Story.
I actually believe, I did not add this to the story, but I believe one of the people involved with Lucasfilm Animation said that aside from the one night that they're just going to air 1 episode, I think they're going to do double episodes again, which kind of like the reverse of what happened with the last one that they did was just a single part episode, and then they just left it for the mid-season.
Speaking of Solo, John Williams recently confirmed that he will be writing the theme for the Han Solo film, although composer John Powell is still handling the rest of the score. Williams is 85 and will complete the Skywalker saga score with Episode 9, but honestly, any chance you get to get his hand to paper to write a piece of space opera music, you just do it. And that's exactly what Lucasfilm has done. So we look forward to hearing what Williams has come up as a theme for our favorite Scoundrel, and it sounds like everything is looking up in regards to the Solo movie. Oh, wait. Oh, I spoke too soon. Solo is going through reshoots, guys.
Oh no!
Sound the siren. Alert the village. This movie is in more trouble. Nah, I'm just kidding. Anything you've heard about recent reshoots is simply standard, normal pickups, which are minor post-production shots done to help smooth out the filming during the editing process. So enough with the Solo drama, unless we want to pick that back up in our next segment. But think of it essentially as a final proofread of a book before publishing. You got to gloss things over, fill some cracks, and go along your way. So we are still on track, staying on target for the May 25th release. Don't listen to what anybody else is telling you. Now, you can find the articles to all these stories, several of which were written by Grant Davis, who has joined us today. And all of your latest Star Wars news and information about Star Wars at StarWarsNewsNet.com, your best source for all things Star Wars in the galaxy. Now, typically, we go to Bill, who is not joining us today. I think he's doing the Kessel run in like 30 parsecs, so he's not going to be with us for a while.
12!
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Or he's working on his Jar Jar impression, thinking that they're going to make a comeback. But either way, Bill will be back with us next week. Typically, we would go to him to take a seat and do Is the Force With You, but we're going to try something new this week called Star Wars War. And what that is kind of like a movie brawl sort of thing where we're going to introduce a hot button topic like we were just talking about, Han Solo, how's this movie going to do? And we're going to do a little bit of an open forum discussion and try to convince one another on what we think about the future of that topic. So as we said, this week it's going to be about Solo, and essentially what we're trying to say here is, will Han Solo be well received by fans, or will it take some sort of backlash like The Last Jedi has? And will it do well at the box office in terms of a Star Wars movie? We're not talking about like an American Pie movie here. We're talking, will it do well in terms of a Star Wars movie, taking into consideration some of the increase in budgets it may have undertaken. So let's start things off. Where are you guys at? Let's all start kind of like with our opening feelings about it, like a couple sentences, and then we'll just get into it. So Pat, we'll start with you. Where are you feeling? How are you feeling about what's going to happen with Solo?
I'm definitely becoming more and more increasingly positive, even though it seems the advertising has kind of lagged a little bit behind from what we originally expected. I expect that this film is going to receive a lot of backlash because, first of all, it's not Harrison Ford. That's kind of expected. This is something they're trying to sell to us. This is not the Solo you are used to. This is a brand new Solo. But deep down at the core of its value, Disney has to prove to us that this is the same Han Solo you've known and loved for all these 40-plus years. I think they can do it. It's going to be a tough sell, but I think after the first trailer, I think everyone's going to buy into this, and the box office is going to prove it big time. However, because, like you said, this has had a lot of shooting, there's been a lot of pre-production, and a lot of by the way, the production of this film has gone through 2 cycles compared to the general one. It's been through 2 different sets of directors, so obviously they're going to need to make a lot of money back, and that's the real question. I think being a Star Wars film, it will still make quite a bit of money, but not as much as they could have had they not had the director problems.
So you think, in other words, you're saying you think it will get some backlash, kind of like The Last Jedi, but overall positive, and you think it'll perform pretty well at the box office?
Yeah, definitely, but like usual, this comes out every year after these films release. You know there's going to be these articles saying, oh, this Star Wars movie underperformed. By the way, look, there's like over $1 billion in the box office. Not a success at all. Of course it's... So,
Grant, where are you at in terms of how's the movie going to be received and how's it going to perform financially?
I think like with general audiences are going to be into this, it'll be a real question about Star Wars fans. And the thing is, with the Star Wars fandom, I've come to realize is we can't agree on anything, so it's of utmost importance that instead of Disney trying to make the Han Solo movie the movie that fans want, they should make the movie that they think is the best possible way to take the character. With this, I'm thinking that it'll end up being somewhat divisive among the fans, like not as much as The Last Jedi though, but I think that it will be a case of it'll do fine, all things considered. Like I imagine at worst it'll just do mid 250 domestic or something. I mean, one thing I think is worth noting is that Deadpool moved forward so that instead of being I mean, if Deadpool came out right afterward, that would have hurt its legs, but I feel like because Deadpool is moving in closer, that actually helps Solo just a little bit. So
helps?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it helps in the sense that it doesn't have to deal with it competition as the second weekend in. Like the competition for the second week is Ocean's 8, which I think that'll probably do well. It's just, you know, it won't necessarily reach the same 4-quad demographics that Star Wars usually does.
Okay, so you're saying if you're capping it out at 250 domestic, then you're thinking it's not going to do well for a Star Wars movie.
I'm saying at worst. At best, I'm thinking it'll be like 300 something,
which is still not good.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we have to keep in.
Well, hold that thought, because I want to get James's, and then we'll ring the bell and go at it. So, James, what initial, like, do you think it's going to be well received, and how do you think it's going to do well financially?
Yeah, well, I actually think that Grant's view on the 300, 250 domestic is actually, I think that's pretty accurate, considering, like, Last Jedi is like at, you know, 500 maybe or whatever, and like the saga films are definitely going to do better. But my overall thing just is I knew Solo was going to be great for Star Wars fans, and so was Last Jedi. And then Last Jedi came out, and of course it's a financial success. And I think that Solo will do well for what it is and what it's supposed to be. Like, it's supposed to be a Rogue One, not a saga film. But the backlash from 8, and I'm like, seriously, like, I think that this might just be precedent for this Solo movie coming out, and there's already like all these talks, these weird feelings. Oh, there was reshoots. Oh, there's different directors. Like, people are kind of aware of that, and they're like not really sure about it being Han Solo. And I honestly just think that it's going to be fuel, and I don't want this to be the case. I really don't, but I think it's going to be fuel for people to continue to say that they don't like what Disney's doing. But it's going to be a good film for me, for us. I think we're really going to enjoy it, but I think that the general public is going to have something to say about it. And it's going to, and here's my prediction. I think it will be the lowest earning Star Wars film to date, but I still think it will make its money back, and it will not be like break even or a bomb. It won't bomb. It's impossible.
No,
it's a bomb.
Yeah,
but
I see.
But yeah,
I think personally that it will do well financially in terms of movies, but in terms of a Star Wars movie, I don't think it will do great. I think it's going to be well received by fans, and even some of the people who detracted from The Last Jedi, because I have a feeling with Ron Howard, you have some stability there, some old school Lucasfilm feel. This is going to feel more like home to those fans, and they're going to use this as their vehicle to say, this is what Rian Johnson should have done, that idiot. Like, it's actually going to turn some people who don't like The Last Jedi to almost force themselves to like this movie, to stick it to him. Because it seems like every time I see people yelling about The Last Jedi, they are just going after Rian Johnson. They're not even saying Lucasfilm. They're pointing at him for some artistic flair of his. And then in addition, I think it just really is going to come down to Alden Ehrenreich. I think Glover, Harrelson, the direction with Ron Howard, it's loaded. Larry Kasdan writing this thing, they have an all-star Murderers Row lineup. It comes down to Alden Ehrenreich. If he doesn't deliver as Han Solo, this thing is going to be in deep shit.
Yeah, but they didn't like what they did with Luke. They're like, oh, you took this character that we had built up in our heads for all these years.
And you don't think Han Solo is going to be one of those things too, though?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think they're going to say you ruined Han Solo. Like, that's what I'm afraid of, especially after the precedent of them saying, like, look, Disney already ruined Luke. Now watch, they're going to ruin Han Solo too.
Okay,
and then they're going in with that mindset.
But you agree then that this movie is going to come down to Alden Ehrenreich then?
No, I'm saying I don't think it matters. I don't think Alden Ehrenreich no.
So even if he crushes it and like people are like, that's Han Solo, they're still going to be like, screw that.
No. Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that he comes in and he does whatever performance he's going to do. I think there are too many people that have already made up their mind that they're going to go in and be like, kid can't act, or like, that's not Han Solo, or something like, oh, they made him this thing that I don't remember Han Solo ever doing this in those original movies. Yeah, because that was a different person. You know what I mean? This has been like decades.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah,
I mean, they're doing that with Luke too. Like, Luke has like one mild fleeting moment of maybe even thinking about doing something bad, and they're like, not my Luke. So it's like, how do you expect these same fans to go into Han Solo and see him doing like things that like we've never seen him do before, and they're going to say like, yep, that's Han Solo to a T. Loved it. Like, I just don't see that happening.
And here's the precedent that's really weird, is that with Last Jedi, we went from the Luke we knew in the original trilogy to a future Luke, one that's had time to build and to change over 30 plus years. With this, you're taking a Han Solo we know and going in reverse. We're going backwards to a time where Han Solo's still a different character, much like the new Luke, but you have to leave room for Han to grow over 10 plus years.
Do you think people are going to accept that? That's what I'm saying.
It really depends, and it's weird to judge this because we even haven't had...
Prequelists will like it.
Yeah.
Prequelists will like
ultimately, it is a prequel film.
They turned Darth Vader into an annoying little 8-year-old kid, and people ate that up. Some people,
They didn't eat it up, and that's actually one of my arguments for the Last Jedi stuff.
Wait, what are you talking about? Are you kidding?
People did not eat up the prequels when they first came out, but they've grown over time, and they like them now. I think Solo and Last Jedi, all that stuff down the line, people are going to be like, whatever, they're the Star Wars movies. I didn't like them when they came out.
Let me tell you why I disagree with that. Because people like... Now, you and I are older. We're over 30. But, like, Pat and Bill and Grant were, like, 5 when The Phantom Menace came out.
Basically.
They weren't able to yell. They weren't able to yell and be like, I love this. But now that they're of the age where they're on podcasts and they're saying this was their movie. It was just now that they have the voice to say it. All the only people that detracted from it were curmudgeons back then who were able to say something. Now that the kids who were 5 when that movie came out are of age to talk about it, we realize who really did love those movies. So if those people are going to be the ones going to see this movie, they're going to be cool with it.
And ultimately,
it's Last Jedi, though. You're saying because of the era that it takes place in?
No, I think the people who weren't cool with The Last Jedi are mostly the older folk who were stuck on.
And those same people are going to go see Solo. Or they're not. They're just going to be like, I'm not even going to waste my money. And they're going to be vocal about that. I'm being negative Nancy, but like this is just kind of like, I remember after like a couple weeks of like some of the backlash, I remember like thinking to myself, man, I was so up on Star Wars. I was like, 8's going to crush it. Solo's going to come out and people are going to be like, this is awesome because it just looks awesome from what we've seen so far. But then like all the negative stuff came out and I was like, man, I think all these people are going to say they hated 8. Then they're going to go into Solo and they're going to say they hated Solo. And then we're going to go a year and a half and they're going to go, can't wait to see this crap fest or whatever, the next director or the next movie is going to be after they already ruined everything else. And then they're going to hate 9.
It depends on the segment of fan you're talking about, though.
It really does.
Because you can have the hater of The Last Jedi who is like the 50-year-old guy who's like, there was 3 Star Wars movies, and there was never a special edition. They're going to hate everything. Yeah. Fine. But then you have the guys who are kind of in our age range. And those people dropped out at
Force Awakens, right?
Yeah.
But most people accepted Force Awakens, and we moved on, right?
But what if Han Solo is more of a safe movie that people who liked Force Awakens, who hated The Last Jedi, will come back to and say, all right, you're back on track.
That was Rogue One, and some people bought into it, but I still don't think that won back over the Force Awakens people. They were still like, nah, I don't like what Disney's doing.
I don't know. It still made a lot of money for like you said yourself, standalone movies shouldn't have been doing as well as the saga films. That movie made a lot of. It's a top 10 domestic.
Yeah, you're saying Rogue One.
Yeah. Yes, I am. So I'm saying it brought people to the house. So if Han Solo captures that lane that JJ created, that familiarity that isn't what Rian Johnson did, it may take people who didn't necessarily like The Last Jedi back and say, okay, you guys are back on that sort of track there.
But I'm talking just most well-received.
That safe track.
Most well-received, Force Awakens. Then probably second best well-received, Rogue One. Then third best well-received, Last Jedi. Then
on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I think some of these fans are just really starting to get bitter. And then they're coming in and we're giving them another legacy character and saying like, this isn't just like Last Jedi is still Rey and Kylo's story and Luke's in it. You know what I mean? Carrie's or Princess Leia is in it.
That's arguable. It's still, Luke is the Last Jedi. Well, it was still his story.
I understand, but I'm saying like but this is Solo's story, right? That's what I'm saying.
It wasn't like, oh, there's Luke, hi Luke, and then that's it. It was like, no, he was the meat of the movie.
But what I'm saying is that he's still like kind of a, I don't know. I don't want to say he's a supporting character because I understand where you're coming from. My thing is like, I don't think that movie is he's the main character of the movie. Do you?
I mean, he's the title of the movie.
Well,
Ray could be the title of the movie, depending on some fans.
Okay.
What was Austin Powers about? Who was the main character?
But he
of
was
Austin
supposed
Powers?
to be the main character. It wasn't
Indiana Jones. Just give me a guess. Who was the main character of that movie?
I agree with what you're saying, but you're trying to tell me that Ray isn't the main character of this trilogy.
Who was the main character of Batman?
But Force Awakens wasn't called Ray.
You're gonna say Alfred just to be
right. my thing is look,
no,
they gave us Luke, and people didn't like what they did with Luke. They gave us Leia, and people didn't really like what they did to Leia. Like, what is this? We asked for her to use the Force, not float around. Like, I don't know. It's just they weren't really happy with the way that it was handed to them. I just have this feeling that those same fans are going to go, eye roll. Can't wait to go see how they ruin Solo too. You know what I mean? Even just the line alone, which we've debunked a million times. This is how Solo got his name. People were already starting to eye roll at that. Like, we don't want that, right?
That was Bob Iger.
Yeah. and I'm just like, that's all just set up. Like all those things building on this, like people are starting to get worried because of the reshoots. People are starting to get worried because of the acting coach. People are starting to get worried because we haven't seen any marketing material. People are starting to get worried because The Last Jedi just came out and it was not well received. People are starting to get worried because I say the reshoots because of like the director swap and all that, but also the reshoots and the fact that like, how much money did they spend on this? Is this even going to be a financial benefit for Disney? Like all these things combined, I just think people are going in with a very negative state of mind, and that could potentially mean that they just are blind. They don't like the movie.
Hear me out.
Of course, it could set the standards really low, and then they're like,
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, but hear me out. Us here, like super Star Wars geeks, are tuned in to the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know the marketing times and the trailer times. But what if you're like, I know a guy who just got into Star Wars recently, and he's like, dude, I just saw The Last Jedi. I loved it. Do you think they're going to make another one?
Yeah.
Are you talking about like the Matrix where like the lightsaber goes over Luke's face as he's bending backwards?
No, Pat, I was just saying we're dialed in.
Okay.
Which you're apparently not. No. In other words, like he's watched all the movies and he had no idea that they're making episode 9. So he's just like, do you think they're going to make another one? So that's a fan base there who's going to be like, I know Han Solo. Oh, there's a trailer out? Oh, there's a Han Solo movie? And they know nothing about the drama. And if it's a good trailer and Alden Ehrenreich can convince people that he's as good, if not better than Ewan McGregor was at Obi-Wan, people are going to go see this movie.
Yeah.
The inside baseball Star Wars people, we're going to have problems.
But the reason those movies...
I think a general audience is gonna like it as long as they deliver on that lane that they're familiar
But the general audience isn't the thing that gets a movie to $1 billion. It's the people that...
Yes, it
is.
It's
Actually,
the people...
I agree with him on this one. I mean, the fans certainly help in the long terms as far as the legs go, but the thing is, the general audience, generally speaking, are the ones who are going to determine how many millions your movie opens up to. And I mean...
Or billions.
No. That's where I disagree. You guys, how many times did your mom see Force Awakens? How many times did a diehard fan
17.
see Force Awakens? That's what I'm saying.
2.
I think she saw it twice.
No, yeah. What gets a movie into the $1 billion range is the repeat viewing. And if people go into this movie negative and then they walk out and they're like, I just didn't like it. Like, that wasn't my Han Solo. They don't go see it multiple times. It doesn't matter how many people you got in there the first weekend. You need people to go see it multiple times first weekend in order to hit those higher numbers. And the casual fan goes and sees it once opening weekend. They don't go see it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, trying to hit those big $1 billion, well, it's not $1 billion numbers, but trying to hit those like 200,000 first weekend, 250,000 first weekend. That's, I say thousands, millions is what I mean. 250 million first weekend.
Where are you cutting your line at Star Wars fans? Because like in order for Force Awakens to make 900 million domestic, that means like 82 million people needed to see that movie or whatever. Like I don't think there's 82 million people walking around being like, oh, Star Wars. I think people around Christmas time packed in the station wagon, went to go to the theater, and that's how you saw the movie. And I don't think it's just diehards that drive big box office. I disagree.
I think there's plenty of people that go see it because it's the new, latest, biggest Star Wars movie, right?
Or it's the latest, biggest movie. It's Christmas. Let's go see the movie. Oh, what's out? Oh, that Star Wars is out.
Yeah, and a lot of people will go see it.
It got great reviews.
And those types of numbers are the types of numbers that get people $100 million opening weekend. That's Wonder Woman. That's Black Panther coming up. That's Justice League, right? Those movies are movies that everybody went and saw them opening weekend, but they didn't go see them 3 and 4 and 5 times.
Do you think critics are going to like this movie?
That's tricky. I haven't really.
You have a Ron Howard directed film
because I think
written by Lawrence Kasdan.
Because I think you have a Last Jedi situation, right? You've got the critics saying, good movie. We liked it. And then it came out and the fans were like, bleh, right? And I don't know, maybe this whole thing it comes down to expectations. And we've talked about that before. Maybe expectations were too high for Last Jedi and it let everyone down. Maybe expectations are, in my personal opinion, so low, pun intended, that
oh jeez
that
well, you are a dad, so you qualify for dad.
All right. I have my license here around here somewhere. The expectations are so low for this movie that people are actually going to come in and man, I thought, like, kind of Rogue One, like, I thought after all those reshoots and all the stuff I was hearing, I don't know what they're talking about. I loved it, right? So that could be that as well.
I think that's what I think.
But I think that's the average fan talking. I'm scared about the diehard fan. What are they going to do?
You guys
How are
question.
they going to soak in all of these new revelations that they have about Han Solo that they haven't had for 30, 40 years? Now all of a sudden
what percent of movie
he's doing, I don't know, backflips. And we're like, Han Solo doesn't do a backflip, but he did in that action scene.
If Han does a backflip, and Chewie's like, Chewie does a backflip with him.
Like,
they both do backflips and like jump in the air and do high fives like Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you guys honestly, like your guess, what percentage of movie going audience even has any clue that Lord and Miller were directors and they got fired and Ron Howard took over? Or are they just going to see a trailer that says Ron Howard presents?
Yeah. I mean, you're dead on. I agree with that. I'm talking about the diehard fan reception. What do you think, Pat? Pomo? Like, are people going to be aware that there were reshoots? Are people going to be aware that there was directors?
I mean,
a swap?
If you're the thing you're mentioning, the people who are only going to see this in the theater once, those are the people who aren't going to be paying attention to, like, some of the close-up stuff is the thing. They're just going to be there for the sake of there's a movie they want to see, they want to get their entertainment in, and they want to forget about life for a while. So, yeah, I don't think they're necessarily going to be worried about every little update that the movie went through. I think it's a matter of the people, like, the fans are the ones who are worried about Solo. Like, I think honestly, in terms of internally, like, unless they really dropped the ball on this, which I don't think they did, I don't think Disney is as worried as the movie's production cycle would indicate that they'd be worried. Does that make sense?
I agree. Pat, what do you got?
It's a weird predicament because talking about the general gross of what your movie's going to make, especially domestically here in the U.S., your first 2 weeks of your film, what Disney's trying to do is they're trying to put butts in seats. As long as they put butts in seats, that's all that matters. And that's generally why when you go to these big Star Wars movies within the first 2 weeks, it's hard to get in there. You're trying to make all your money. You're trying to get people in and out as quick as possible. That's why, like when we saw in Last Jedi, in the theater situation, they said that Last Jedi had to be in your biggest theater, like in the first 3 weeks. They were demanding 4 weeks. And they're demanding has to be in there because they know it's going to make money. Now, like you guys were saying, these hardcore fans, that's where it gets tricky because that's when these review things start popping up on like Rotten Tomatoes and all these other critic websites. whether a movie is good or bad, you can have the trolls who go in there and try to sway the shift of the film. That can ultimately decide how much money your movie makes. And it's really weird because we still have yet to see this trailer, so, like...
Right.
We don't know what to expect. It's 3 weeks from now, our perception could be completely flipped.
Yeah, the other thing about that is I agree with what you're saying in terms of they just want asses in the seats because they want to make money, but legacy's at stake here for Lucasfilm because there was backlash for The Last Jedi, although it's going to finish top 5 box office domestic all time. But if this movie gets backlash too, like James is thinking it might, and say it makes 500 million, like, all right, but then it has like a 5.8 or 6.0 on IMDb, and people are like, wait, is Star Wars becoming Transformers now? Where it's like, yeah, it makes money, but these movies kind of stink. Then it's not up here anymore, which I always separate Star Wars from all the other stuff. Pirates of the Caribbean, all these other franchises that are big. Star Wars just stands above for a reason because it's quality. It's heart, like we were saying before. The story group puts a lot of heart into their storytelling. If all of a sudden people go to IMDb like, oh, what's this Solo movie? 6.0. Like, ugh. Like, what is... okay, I remember those movies back in the early 2000s that weren't that good either. Is that what's happening now? So I think they really need to focus on both. They need to balance. We need the critics with this. We need people to like it, and we need to make bank. So it's not just popcorn putting people in the seats like Jurassic World 2 probably will. But that's just,
I do get what you're saying, but I'm going to say there's a Star Wars film will never be as bad as Transformers, man.
Never.
Like,
never.
It's just,
sorry,
it's
Val.
honestly just like, yeah, it's not possible. I think because you're saying like, oh, so like a 6.0, Transformers mans are getting like 3s and like,
okay, let's see how
18%
really?
Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. Like, they're
let's see how the
garbage.
last Transformers was rated on IMDb.
Yeah.
Huh, a 5.2 out of 10.
A 5.2 out of 10.
Yes.
All right.
That's generous.
Might concede that, but I personally gave that movie a 3. I was just like, this movie is garbage. But I think that overall, like, Solo will be successful. I'm just kind of afraid of how people are going to treat it. That's the same as saying, like, you know, Last Jedi was successful. It's just that people aren't really treating it that well. I think that overall, Solo will probably end up doing, and I'm going to take a guess here, 700, 800 million worldwide.
Worldwide?
Yeah. I
just fire away.
130.
Guys. Like, I mean, we have to wrap this up in a couple of minutes here, but just like this is open. Just let it fly.
130 million opening weekend domestic.
Okay, so yeah, I'm thinking opening weekend domestic will probably be around 130 million. In part because it has to deal with greater competition for one thing.
I think it's gonna make 131 million.
Well, yeah,
I hate you, John. You take it back.
Go right ahead. I'm just saying.
Closest without going over.
The thing, and from there, I'm thinking globally, if it plays low, then I think it'll play 650, which isn't too shabby. If it plays high, I think it'll go as high as like 900 million or so. I don't think it's crossing $1 billion, and that's okay because I don't like the perception that a movie absolutely has to make $1 billion or it's a failure.
Yeah.
Because only so few movies have done that since 1997. I think that was Titanic.
Yeah, that's why I laughed when I saw some site do an article that said. The Last Jedi is disappointing. Will never live up to The Force Awakens. I'm like, neither will any movie ever. So, like when Avatar 2 bombs, then we'll talk. But
well,
Pat, you look like you're itching to say something here. Just let it fly, dude.
I'm a little lowballing on this, but I'm gonna have to go since it's still before the trailer. It's kind of hard to decipher this. I'm sure we'll get better predictions later. I'm gonna go closer to 126, 127 million opening domestic. That way. It's big enough to be considered a success for opening weekend, but small enough to where it's not living up to the hype of a saga film. It still gives it a little bit of room to breathe. I feel like it'll get in the ballpark of around 900 to 925 million worldwide after its full run. I don't think that's enough to cover the overall costs of this giant production. It's been so... I mean, it's really expensive, and I would hate to see it shoot so low. But we always say the Chinese box office is last, and that's one you can't ever it's weird because
Star Wars
and Westerns,
Star Wars never does well.
But
in
it's a
Japan,
Western.
It's
a
they
Western.
need to accept it.
And Westerns haven't really. I mean, they've done relatively well in China, and they normally don't.
Now, I think so. You guys are all 130, and you said 115-ish. I think people who don't like Star Wars and complain about Star Wars are still going to go see Star Wars because they like to hate things. I think this movie is going to go 140 to 150 opening weekend because it's going to still have that push, and they're going to market it hard the last 2 months when we get the full trailer, probably in March.
If it gets really good reviews, I think that'll probably be the case. Yeah,
they're gonna at this point they're definitely gonna John Wick this movie, or like Cloverfield Lane. Like they're just gonna be like, here's the stuff. It comes out in like 3 months. Go see it. Boom. That's their new marketing strategy, as opposed to like the 8 month long. We'll give them like this and this and this.
Then you start seeing Donald Glover pop up on Fallon, and like they start doing that whole machine as it gets closer, and they're gonna do it.
I'm glad you mentioned that marketing strategy as well, because it's, from the looks of things, it's looking like they're going to do that with Ant-Man and the Wasp. From the looks of things, yeah, because we're about 6 months out from that movie as well, and we haven't gotten a trailer yet. So, I mean, I think it's gonna drop with Black Panther, and I totally think the trailer's going to drop before the end of this month. Like, I'm thinking probably like in the next 7 days we will have an idea of when the trailer comes out.
And you're talking about
seen it tomorrow.
That Solo trailer?
Solo trailer?
Yes. Yeah. Solo.
Yeah, and that's going to help us shape this, so I think we should revisit this, but we need to round this thing up here. I'm still not convinced that it's going to get slammed. I think this is going to be something that's embraced even by people who didn't like The Last Jedi because of just almost out of spite. For some reason, I feel that way. I might be wrong. We'll see, but I'm leaning positive there. One last a sentence or two each from you guys. I don't really care because you're wrong, but and then we'll move on.
Now, this is something that I want to pose to you guys, something to maybe chew on over the next week or two, is that do we want Lucasfilm to make a film that's going to appease the general audience and the fan base just to drive up the general audience score in the box office, or do they want to keep doing these hard-hitting, taking risk films for the more hardcore fans like us? It's definitely a weird, tricky balance situation, and I think it's something as the fan base we need to start thinking about. Like, what do we want moving forward? Do we want more risks, or do we want more flashy fun?
I think that they need to take risks, but the thing is, with the movies that you do to have risks taken, I think they need to watch their budget. That's the real important thing here, I think, is that they need to watch their budgets and manage them accordingly. Because I don't think every Star Wars movie is going to have to be $200 million to get out, I imagine Kenobi will probably be fairly inexpensive, all things considered, if it's a movie that's primarily set on Tatooine,
They're not going to make that movie. I'm just kidding. I'm not a Kenobi fan. But anyway, about the Solo stuff, everything changes when this trailer comes out. Like, this entire Star Wars war, it changes as soon as we see it, and then we just get a vibe of like what the fan reaction is, and what people are going to be saying about it online. And I think a lot of what I'm assuming about the movie is going to be pretty evident right after that first trailer hits, because if people are sour on the first trailer, I don't think they're coming around. And if they're like, you know what, that looks awesome, I think they're going to come around, and we're going to get maybe some Rogue One numbers with this. But right now, I just have a feeling it's going to be more likely on the sour end. But for me, I don't care, because it's going to be awesome, and I'm going to love it. So,
oh yeah,
I'm happy.
And so I think it's one thing I'd like to say there is there are a lot of people, for frame of reference, there were a lot of people who were sour about the first Jumanji trailer, and look where that is now. So just keep that in mind. Keep an open mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if Han Solo bombs, they'll get The Rock to do Han Solo.
I was going the same way. I was like,
all right, so all right, we got to wrap up the Star Wars war here. Let us know what you guys think in the comments under the episode. If you like Star Wars wars, obviously this is our first one, but we would like to get into more of these. I had fun with this one. And don't worry, the Force is with you. I know you guys like that. We'll bring that back too. But we may just start this year interchanging some segments here and there just to keep things fresh. But let us know if you like Star Wars Wars. We'll probably put a poll up to see if you enjoyed it. And we're going to wrap this one up here, though. And Pat, what's going on? Well, let's tweet with the Resistance a little bit. Let's see what's on their mind. So take it away.
Thanks, John. Now we're going to get to the questions, the hard-hitting questions you guys have been sending us over the past few days and weeks. First off, we asked you guys if in some sort of nod to Indiana Jones, in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way, they would show us how Han Solo got his chin scar. And we picked the best answer from you guys out in the Twitterverse, and this one came from Rick Molenhouse at A New Hoop 77. Sounds like some good action there. I hope that's coming from Michael Jordan. And he said Han beat Chewie at Dejarik and got tossed from the table, foreshadowing his line, "Let the Wookiee win." Response to R2 in A New Hope. Guys, what do you think about this? Would it be funny to see Chewie give him a nice fresh one across the chin?
I would not like that because I always consider them boys from beginning to end. So, I mean, it was funny. It's clever. And I like things that we project to, oh, so that line would make much more sense if that happened. So I kind of liked it from that perspective. But I don't want to see Han and Chewie fight. And I don't want to see... Chewie's too loyal to Han. So I just don't want to see that. I would hate the movie. I'll ban the movie. I'll ban the movie if that happens. It's gonna bomb.
Would you ban the movie if they called it a life debt scar?
Yes.
Yeah, I think what's weird about I like his response, and I think that it was an interesting thing to come up with this idea of how he might get it. But I would say that since the scar is not something that his character has always had, it's been more of like, that's just Harrison Ford. He has that, you know? That I don't think they'll ever touch on it. Plus...
But they did it in Indiana Jones with River Phoenix, so...
Yeah, but that's different. I don't know. It's still Lucasfilm. I know.
All right, we're doing another Star Wars war about if Indiana Jones is...
I do really love the idea that Rick tossed out there, though, the foreshadowing of let the Wookiee win. I think that if not about this chin scar thing, that would be perfect for them to... at some point in the movie, have him lose and actually rip out someone's arm, probably a droid because of blood or whatever, but he'll get really mad, rip out the arm, and then we all know that Wookiees have been known to pull people's arms out of their sockets. So I actually like that idea. Good idea, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
As far as if there's a chin scar thing, what I would do personally if they did that would be to have Boba Fett just walk by and then just casually like nick him on the thing, and that's how their rivalry begins or something like that.
Like it's just a dick move.
Yeah, it's just a passive dick move. He doesn't even say anything, but it's Daniel.
He scrapes him with the top of his jetpack.
Yeah.
On accident.
I like those responses. Now we're going to move on to some more questions. This first one comes from Shannon Smith at Shannon Nick Smith on Twitter, and she asked, do you think Daisy Ridley is just keeping it a secret that there's more Star Wars episodes in the works, or is Lucasfilm going to pull a George Lucas, come back 10 years later, and continue them? James, what are your thoughts on this?
Shannon, listen to me. This is how it is. There's no secret out there. They don't have this all planned out. There's no like hidden agenda that they're holding back, that they really know all these things. So they tell the actors to go out and lie about them and not express their real opinions. Mark Hamill is probably at the forefront of this, saying Disney has never, ever told me to say something or do this. And I think there's just this whole concept of how these Star Wars movies work, that they've got it all figured out and it's planned, and it's not true. Daisy does not, she's saying her real opinion about the movie. She was signed on for 3 movies. She's planning on doing 3 movies, and then she's going to explore herself as an actress. There is no lie, no front to set up multiple movies so that they can try to keep that stuff hidden, because Disney really wants to keep it hidden. The only thing that I would say is that she's being honest with herself right now, and later down the line, maybe 10 years later, maybe, you know what I mean? But she doesn't want to say that because she knows the headlines are going to be more like, she says she's probably coming back. And she's like, that's not where we're at. I'm not even thinking about that stuff. So for right now, I'm doing my 3 movies and that's it. I don't think there's some hidden agenda. So Shannon, that's my take on this situation.
It's a good question though, only because some people need to kind of hear that answer. So maybe Shannon put that out there so that we could kind of squash that bug. Don't let James be mean to you.
I'm just trying to give it to you straight, Shannon. I don't want you out there thinking that all this hubbub of George Lucas and he's planning everything. Like, just don't believe the stories. Don't believe
the flannel shirt is always lingering around the corner of the director's room.
What's it called? The Illuminati? Like, there's some sort of Lucasfilm Illuminati.
Falcon.
No, it's not the Illuminati. It's the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, like, the Story Group has a lot of power and they're doing this stuff, but at the same time, the Story Group is not like this ultimate, like, hood wearing, candle lighting group that, like, has these ceremonies where they figured out the plan and it's all gonna go the way we plan, because Luke says it himself, it's not gonna go that way. Just let the directors and let the producers kind of just feel out the audiences and take you on the journey, maybe just a few years in advance.
I believe it was once said by Bobby Moynihan in an SNL skit once, "You will give me a Coke Zero." And our next question comes from Fleming B. Jessen on Twitter, at Bjorn Jessen. They asked, "It would be nice to hear your take on how the sequel trilogy holds up story-wise compared to the other trilogies, and is this still a Skywalker saga?" I feel like right now it's kind of hard to judge the sequel trilogy, considering we're only 2 movies in, and we really don't have that third movie to kind of give an overall a total feeling like we've had with the prequels and, of course, the original trilogy. This is something we need to kind of wait and explore. I think we'll come back and definitely give a better opinion in early 2020 after we've all seen Episode 9, and we can kind of round this out. After we've seen that film, we can give our takes on the film and then start to consider the saga-wide, the bigger issues at hand, and what goes on past that, and then, of course, compare and contrast how they are. So it's a little too early to decide. Right now, I feel like they're taking the steps in a generally good, different direction that sets the sequel trilogy on its own path, and it's something to consider moving forward. And yes, I would still say this is definitely a Skywalker saga. It's still in the vein of everything. You've got Leia, you've got Luke, you've got Ben Solo, who technically through Leia is a Skywalker, and they're now starting to take steps to branch out and go in a different direction. It's something the fans have wanted for a long time, but at its core value, it is still a Skywalker saga through and through. So thank you for your question. Now we're going to send it over to Leo Charles M at Ilmac54 on Twitter, and Leo asked, "Dear Resistance Broadcast, Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi determined that in a moment of pure instinct, like Luke said in the film, Luke Skywalker would attempt to murder his teenage nephew in his sleep because of his fear of the dark side. My question is, what from Luke's past supports this? Thanks, and may the Force be with you." Grant, what's your take on this?
I think that anyone who's asking this question needs to keep in mind that while Luke is usually a reserved person who usually waits before making an action, like one moment stands out to me where he just like loses his lid, flips his lid, is at the very end of Return of the Jedi when he's fighting Darth Vader. Darth Vader technically doesn't know that Leia is the sister he's talking about, as far as the lore indicates, but the simple idea that Darth Vader would directly threaten his family was enough to make him lose his composure and, like, completely grease Darth Vader in terms of one-on-one combat, when previously they were fairly evenly matched at that point. And he very well nearly killed his father just then and there before he made the right decision by throwing his lightsaber away, and then later picking it up. But whatever. That's really what I see happening here, is that although, like, I feel like it might have made more sense if we had, like, a little more context, like if they had shown Ben, like, kind of having, like, this sort of cult-like mentality that he was sort of like becoming a cult leader type thing, which would have tied in with the Knights of Ren nicely. I think that would have made the scene make more sense. I think that's part of the reason why it's so jarring, is that we just see Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber engaged over his nephew. So, like, he gets worried. Sometimes he doesn't necessarily make the right decisions or the best decisions, which also was the big thing in Empire Strikes Back, is he basically quits his training and goes off to save his friends, and that does not end particularly well for him. And in fact, it's probably worse. Things go worse than they would have had he not arrived. You know? So it's like, he made a mistake, but it's in character for him to have struggle and not necessarily make the right decision 100% of the time. And he learned from his failure, and that's why we got the awesome... And that's why I think the ending for Luke in this movie is so poignant, is that he is the New Hope, in the sense of, at this point, the Resistance shouldn't have any, but they have everything they need.
Well done. Well put.
And we would like to definitely thank you all for sending in your questions. If you would like to have your questions possibly read on the next episode of the Resistance broadcast, you can send those to us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. That's Resistance Broadcast at Star Wars Newsnet. You can also send them to us over on our Cantina forum on Star Wars Newsnet. Or send it the old-fashioned way, resistancebroadcast@gmail.com, and you might just hear your question on the air. Back to you, John.
All right, he is absolutely right. And also, head over to our store. Our new store just launched, which was funny. It was awful planning on our part, but we launched our store right when we went on our break. So head over to our store at tpublic.com/user/Resistance Broadcast and pick up some Resistance Broadcast apparel, from t-shirts and stickers to coffee mugs and wall art. It really is the best way to support the show and keep us going. So we'd really appreciate that. We have our Yoda Wise t-shirt, which is actually only available for one more week. So a week from today, next Monday, that shirt is gone. So if you want to get it, check it out. We're going to post a link to it again on our YouTube page so you can check it out. It's old school Yoda. It's not crack puppet Yoda from episode 1. It's not CGI Yoda. It's the Yoda you love, that we love. He's going to be gone in a week. He'll become one with the Force. So you should become one with him and go grab that while you still can. But before you go to grab your Yoda shirt, we just want to say thanks for joining us. It's great to be back. It's going to be a great year for us. Now, you can find our show on iTunes, SoundCloud, and our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and like our episodes on SoundCloud and YouTube. As I said, you can always go to our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com, for every day, for all of your latest Star Wars news and information. I am your host, John Hoey. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, and writing articles and editorials every week at Star Wars Newsnet. James, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks. MIRAHTRUNKS, if you want to learn how to spell it. It's kind of tricky. Guys, please go check out our shirts and designs. It's the greatest way to support the Resistance. I'm working on new stuff. There's stuff going away. That Yoda is gone forever. You have a week or less than a week to get that shirt, and it's gone. We have the Princess one up. That'll be up a little bit longer. We've got so many shirts on the way that you guys haven't even seen. We've got grand shirts, mighty shirts. Like, we've got shirts that'll make you want to go to camp. We got shirts that'll make you want to listen to the Wu-Tang Clan. We have so many. Let me think. We've got shirts that'll make you feel like you're a soldier. Like, I don't know. It's all there.
Gary!
Gary! Yeah. But, yeah, check it out. Lots of stuff on the way. Please go buy a shirt, a coffee mug, a diaper bag. I don't know what we have, but it's there. If you want it, we can make it for you. So
please do. Pat, where can everybody find you, man?
Well, you can see me on my butt this week. I just got a bunch of the new Last Jedi books, so I will be putting in some crunch time into those and getting all my knowledge Star Wars-wise. It's been a definite joy to come on the show with you guys. Glad to be back for 2018. Can't wait to talk some more Star Wars with you guys next week.
And you can also find him on Twitter at Ganon136.
That's right. Damn straight. Come follow me, guys. I always love having a great discussion with you guys. I actually just recently did a Star Wars AMA that went pretty well for the first time ever.
Yeah, and you could also find, Pat loves going to our Cantina, so go to Star Wars Newsnet in the top left corner, click on the Cantina. 365 24/7. You could talk about any topic of Star Wars, whether it's Star Wars food or Star Wars canon, Star Wars legends. Just go there, check it out. There's about 8,000 or 9,000 people signed up for that thing, so there's someone always in there to talk to you about Star Wars. And as we've said before, Bill Sheehy couldn't be with us this week, but go follow him at Star Wars Bill on Twitter. He loves talking with you about anything Star Wars, and he is a prequelist, a big Jar Jar fan. He is finishing up the Kessel Run in about 30 parsecs, so he should be back with us next week. He likes to take the scenic route, but we'll see you next week, Bill. And Grant, Mr. Pomojima, where can everybody find you, buddy?
Everyone can find me here on StarWarsNewsNet.com and on HeroicHollywood.com. And I would also like to point out that I just did another podcast recently since I wasn't on the review podcast like we had originally planned due to scheduling issues. I actually got in a discussion regarding like some of the more controversial elements of The Last Jedi with the people at Midnight's Edge plus Mundane Matt. So I think if you're willing to listen to that sort of discussion about a general reaction from all sorts of people with regard to the movie, then I thought that was a very good discussion and constructive and everything. So you might want to check that out.
Right on. And dude, thanks for coming back. It was great to have you. And thanks to everyone out there in the Resistance for listening, subscribing, spreading the word of our show to your friends and family. It really is great to be back. And trust me, we're just getting started. It's going to be a huge year for this podcast. So we're glad you're in it with us. And we'll see you right here next week on the Resistance Broadcast.